All right. I find it insane how little reaction there is in the press about Kamala Harris's decision not to for governor, including on this very program, which I'm currently hosting. Uh, she was the Democratic nominee for president. And this decision has implications not just for California, obviously, but what it means for her presidential prospects. If you read all the reporting, and I've done my own, it matches with what I see in the papers. People are mixed about whether this suggests she's going to run for president or not, right? And if you read her statement, like it's the Talmud or the Rosetta Stone or Sports Illustrated, it's hard to say whether she's leaning. She's leaning towards setting up a nonprofit, et cetera. I got an email yesterday from one of the smartest Democratic strategists I know with deep experience in presidential politics, and I was asking him various questions about her and running and whether it's about fundraising or whatever it is. And he said, "Mark, she'll never be president. She'll never be president." And that's, I think, Dan, the view I get from most donors, most politicians, most Californians, and most strategists, that they just think if she decides to run for president and try to become the nominee in 2028, even though she's currently the polling front runner off of name ID, and even though she has a very big grassroots list, she will not be the nominee. Thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you. Almost everybody I know, when people do kind of horse race, when people are either, in writing in public or in private, kind of handicapping the field up until now, even though Harris has been leading, and I think that was it's due to name ID, nobody talks about her. Nobody takes her seriously. And I think it is remarkable that the tree kind of fell and people just kind of said, okay, she passed on the gubernatorial race and that's it. Look, the challenge for Harris now is supposedly she's going to put a pack together to be able to raise money to travel the country. There was a report that some people at the DCCC are talking to her about hitting the trail for campaign for House races. I'll be really curious to see who invites her. I don't think any swing state, any really heavy contested race is going to want her in there and want her, going before local press. But she's now got a window, if we're going to be, optimistic for, to go fix some of these narratives, right? That she doesn't really know what she stands for, the word salad, she won't talk to the press, that she's cautious. Like, what on earth what's the rationale for her running? Because Reagan and Trump, the last two to run kind of three times, had very clear visions of where they wanted to take the country that were consistent throughout their history. She is the most inconsistent politician of the modern era, arguably. So the first things first, you're going to have to convince people why you're a serious player.
Yeah. All right. Let me ask you two more questions about her. I keep reading that she's got a great grassroots list. So she had her own list when she ran in 19.
Yep.
Does she have the Biden-Harris list from the presidential? Is that hers?
Yes, because it became her campaign account. So she should have, it is her intellectual property, all those names. Correct.
All those things. And not just the people who signed up after she became the nominee.
Correct, because it was one campaign, so the database was Biden Harris. She was allowed to take that because her name was on it, even though it became Harris Walls. So she should have the entire list of people that helped her raise 1 point whatever it was, 6 billion.
So again, a report she's going to start doing podcasts. She might form an organization, as you said. Maybe she'll campaign for people. If you were advising her and she said, Dan, I know I have a problem with the media, the elite media. I know I have a problem with donors. I know I have a problem with the strategists. I know I have a problem with the elected. How can I address it? How can I, assuming she wants to, and I don't believe she will, but what should she do? Given, and not in the abstract, given her limits as a performer, what could she do to make those people think anew about her? Because right now, as you said, they're not interested in her being the nominee.
Yeah, look, there is an opportunity. You have to sit down with them and you have to kind of put out your theory of the case. You have to eat a little crow about what went wrong and why you weren't able to be successful, your shortcomings, and you need to have a plan, right? I mean, go in there. It's like if you're trying to sell a stock or something, you need to have a theory of the case. And I think the media, donors, people will listen to her. The problem is, even now when she's giving these speeches, she says nothing. Like, it's just kind of, she would have to sit down and put a theory of the case out there about where I'm going to lead the party and what I'm going to do to address my shortcomings.
Sean, I think that the challenge for all these candidates, but I think it's particularly acute for her because she had her turn at the plate. Most of these other folks have never, been at the batting cage. Is what is she for to help the real lives of real people, particularly in the economy? She had some sort of housing plan. I didn't understand it at the time. It certainly didn't break through. Is if you were advising her, is that something she should go spend time with like policy people and try to come up with something, or is that not the route back?
I think she's got two fundamental problems. Dan put his finger on one, and you're bringing up the other, which is you've got the personality and the policy, right? So when she talks, it doesn't sound like somebody who actually got the message. She still does the word salad stuff, and that's, I don't know how much you can overcome that. And then to your point, I think on the policy front, part of this comes down to coming back and saying these are the challenges that the American people face right now, and this is how I'm going to solve them, and this is the way forward. But they go hand in hand. You can't just give a good speech and if you don't seem credible and authentic. And the problem is, in the few things that she has done since she has reemerged, it doesn't sound like she's still the same person. And I don't know how you fix that. And I think unless she was willing to have a really honest, come to Jesus kind of discussion with someone like Dan that said, look, donors, base folks want someone who actually feels like it's relatable. And if you just jumble things together and cackle, and I'm being respectful about this, like it's not going to come up, like they won't hear what you have to say next. And that's the problem, is that they're not going to listen to the policy if they don't believe you as a person.
And the other thing too, Mark, that I forgot to say here, and it's the elephant in the room, how does she handle Joe Biden? Because Donald Trump was unpopular when he left in February of 21, but his policies were popular again by mid 22, right? On the economy, his focus on immigration, there was kind of like a longing for him. I don't think there's going to be a longing for Joe Biden. So you have to, before you do anything else, figure out how you're going to, and it cannot be again, no separation at the hip. It just can't be.
You saw how Buttigieg tried to do that, right? Where he said COVID and the border were two areas. I give him a C for how he handled it, but at least it was something. And he acknowledged that there had to be daylight. And so I wasn't particularly pleased with how he did it, because it was almost like he was like, I have to say something, so I'm going to come up with an answer that's pretty obvious. And the COVID one is a cop out, to be honest with you, because it's not you know what I mean? It's not blaming Biden. It's saying we were all wrong. And the border one is obvious. But I think you're absolutely right. If she comes out and it's just nothing the same, she has a similar problem. So the other, to your point, Mark, I think that there's an area where if I were her and I was serious, one of the things that I would do is fly to Wilmington and sit down with President Biden and say, sir, listen, I was honored you chose me to run. I do want to run again. I've been talking to donors. I think I can do it. I want to pay tribute to your legacy and the fact that you chose me. But there are three things that I need to say we should have done different, or that I'll be different on. And here they are. Are you good with that? And I actually don't think this is a tough thing, because she is a woman. She's Black. She's from the West Coast. I mean, she's a lawyer. There's several just inherent things that are different that she could find ways to use those attributes as a breaking point without getting into deep things. And so I've never thought that this was that big of a challenge. But if I were her, I'd fly out there, have a meeting with him, get him on board with the strategy, which I think he would, and then go from there.
All right. Well, here's where I disagree with you. You play Kamala, I'll play Biden. We're sitting in the house and going to. Just say the last sentence of that pitch, and that's why, Mr. President, I need to. Go ahead.
And so for that reason, this is what I need to do to run.
Are you fucking kidding me, you son of a bitch? That's what he would say, I think.
No. So you're going to be with Hunter.
And then he goes on a book tour and gets his revenge.
So just so we're clear, I think she should meet with President Biden, not Hunter Biden.
Yeah, no, but Joe Biden would say that too. He also likes that Anglo-Saxon verb. Want more great clips like that? I've got an idea. Hit the subscribe button, be part of the Two-Way community, never miss a clip, and you can always watch our full episodes, join them live, go to twoway.tv.